Hey guys, welcome back to the Outfighters Podcast, official podcast of Digital and Creative Media Works, where each week we take something from pop culture and try to break it down to better understand it. My name is David.
Yes, good. My name is Ben.
That is the second week in a row that I've goofed up the intro, so you're welcome. If you listen to the audio episode, you get to hear that at the very end of the show, because I always put the bloopers in, but boy, howdy. So this week, Ben, it's the end of Future. Wait, do we have one more fucking week left? No, I think this is the last one. No, this is the last one.
No,
Shit, we got no.
I think we have.
We should.
There's technically like one extra.
We should definitely check these before we start recording.
Yeah,
but that's fine. This is either the third. This is either the fourth or the last, or the third or the. Listen.
I believe this is the fourth one.
This is the fourth one, and it's maybe the last. We're not sure. We should have checked that before we started recording. Probably. But hey, it's too late. It's probably the last.
Yeah.
So that being said, I figured. Maybe, what better way to wrap up what we've been talking about than to look at something that is sort of the intersection of both the storytelling aspects that we looked at with this month, and then also the gameplay aspects that we looked at this month.
The good video games.
Extremely good video game Subnautica. And I figured what better way to do it than to wrap up this month by talking about the futurism of Horizon Zero Dawn.
It's a story and a video game.
People fucking love this game.
Well, I think it has a merit.
I wasn't being sarcastic. I just am impressed with how much people love it.
Yeah, it came out of literally nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it had a reasonable like marketing sort of behind it, but it was
still just kind of wild, like a swing in the dark.
There's always an element of that kind of sort of holding back with new IPs.
Until
nowadays.
You can show something great.
Yeah, Horizon Zero Dawn 2 is going to have like a wild
fucking
advertising campaign.
It's
definitely going to have.
Oh god, I hope not. Yeah, I always stress about that. Like, as far as when you make a really great property and they're like, you guys told a really contained story, but what if you did another one?
What if you did it again?
Looking at you, Pirates of the Caribbean. No, so I guess to me, one of the interesting things when I was playing it through, by the way, this is a Patreon requested episode by Yoop Kumans, our main man Yoop. Shout out to Yoop.
You got what you wanted.
Thanks for looking out, fam.
Dude, never say that again,
what,
David.
Fam?
Yeah, no, you're banned from
I was trying to be
word.
cool. I was trying to be hip.
You are the most
cool
uncool person I've ever met, David.
I try.
You cannot say fam.
That sounds like a dope idea. I'm going to try and work this lingo into the show so people get a feeling that maybe I'm hipping up with it.
That's really... Oh, man.
Yeah, I'm going to say Lamau in real life.
Oh, God.
Yeah, it's going to be great.
It's maybe like me in 2009.
Maybe I'll litter in a lol instead of actually laughing. It'll be great. No, so the reason that I wanted to talk about this game in particular is it piqued my interest because Yoop was like, hey, you should play it and you should do an episode on it. I was like, yeah, I'll have a look. And I looked at it and I went, looks like The Witcher meets Monster Hunter, which for a lot of people,
like a bit of Ascreed in there.
Yeah, for a lot of people, that's like a really cool, exciting premise. But all I've done,
that is,
all I've done all summer is play open world action games because I've been playing Assassin's Creed, Shadow of War, and
Subnautica.
There was another one that was the same, and The Witcher still. And then also like Skyrim still. So like those I've been playing a lot of that, and then also Subnautica. So I was like, I don't know if I want another big budget like action RPG on my plate, because I just like I'm tired of these great fucking Geralt saving the universe and shit. I'm just like, ugh. Can I just pick some apples? Oh, it didn't sound too fucking fun.
Classic.
What a professional.
Yeah.
Like I just wanted a contained story that felt like personal and interesting, and like kind of in the way that The Witcher is a lot of the time, but also big stakes. So I was like, cool, I'll check it out. And I started playing it and I went, this is really like low key a personal story that's masquerading as this like really impressive narrative about like the sci-fi and the future, but really it's just like it's about a girl trying to find a place in the world. And that's pretty good. And the more that I played it, the more I realized that the futurism element of it is integrated in a way that is kind of different than a lot of games. So like with The Witcher 3, for instance, the fantasy elements in that game are they're not just the set dressing, they inform like the way that you play the game.
I actually think the comparisons to The Witcher are really apt because even just at a surface level, and even when you sort of get more into like the deep narrative stuff, because you look at The Witcher and it's very Polish. Like,
it's so
straight
Polish.
off the bat, it's very Polish.
Yeah, it's the most Polish thing you can consume.
Yeah, which is actually why I think it's one of the best sort of fantasy settings that we had in recent times, because it's Eurocentric, but it's not the same Eurocentric.
It's not Euro bland.
Yeah,
it's imbued with like culture.
British, it's not all like generic, just like Highland kind of thing.
Yeah, it's not a Tolkien story where it's kind of Celtic.
It's full of white people, but it seems like it isn't.
Correct.
Um,
Yes, this is true.
But so they have just sort of that setting of sort of a place that you understand, but then they fill it with monsters.
Mm-hmm.
So like on the surface level, it's like, oh, it's fantasy because there's like monsters and shit.
It's
But
like, it's really just a Polish fairy tale.
yeah, really, like, and at the deep sort of like narrative level, the monsters aren't sort of like
They're not the bad guys.
Yeah, they're not a major part of the story. Like, if anything, they're just like a fucking drag. Like they're literally an occupation. for
Geralt
Geralt.
even treats them like
Yeah,
a drag.
like, it's just
his
it's
job.
his like it's his job. Like there's nothing fantastic about going out and killing worms and stuff. He just has to. Worm? Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, you nailed it.
Yeah, he just he just has to do it occasionally. 'Cause
Right.
Someone will ask him to do it, and he's like, "Well, I guess that's what I've been
Because I need
trained
to,
to do."
eat food and
Yeah.
pay to money so that I can find Ciri so the king doesn't
And
you
like
know,
as
come
a
after me.
yeah, like initially as a player, it's like really cool fighting these big monsters, but like towards the end, it's like you don't really notice. It's just it's part of the set.
You're like, can I just get to the bit where I do the talking to the
Yeah.
person, please? Because because at some point, your desires transition from fighting big bad things to
being
being Geralt and
Invested in
and
the
talking
narrative,
to people
yeah.
and being a detective, basically. Because that game is a complex detective story.
yeah, it's very
In the same way that Horizon Zero Dawn, I think from a genre perspective, their stories are actually like they have quite a lot of overlap, except for like the time travel and space travel and The Witcher. Like they, in the way that they approach trying to convey a video game story, they're both detective stories, but not in the same way that something like L.A. Noire is, where L.A. Noire is
a detective story.
well, it's a story about detectives, if that makes sense. Like,
Right,
because L.A.
yeah.
Noire is really a thriller, because, detective stories are part of the thriller genre. But I feel like what's kind of cool with Horizon Zero Dawn, especially if you haven't, by the way, if you haven't played it, one of the things that you can do is just kind of watch through. People do this thing where they steal all the footage from the game and they upload it as a film on YouTube, so you can just watch all the cinematics.
you can
and
just
stuff.
watch the
Yeah, which by the way, that's stealing. You shouldn't do that. But if you
Yeah.
wanted to watch that, it's online. You can just do that.
There's been a few developers who have actually no, I think it was specifically like Horizon Zero Dawn where there's a few like a few other games where they, especially on PS4, they block like
Definitely.
recording software
Yeah.
specifically during cutscenes.
Yeah, which they
'Cause
should.
some people are like,
because-
you could just watch this as a movie. Metal Gear Solid, I think, actually does that.
okay. Yeah,
'Cause
it's
that game is actually a film.
Yes.
Those games are actually
Yeah,
movies.
correct. Which, no, I just think that's theft. But yeah, if you did want to go and have a look at those, I think that's
They're there.
and like one of the cool things, and this is why I like watching video games, is you can just enjoy it. Like, you can invest in it and just hang out. Like Aaron and I have been playing the first Fallout game. And one of my favorite parts
boy.
of that is just watching him play it
Yeah.
and helping and being part of the experience. In the same way that part of the reason that Horizon Zero Dawn is so interesting is because when you watch it, it's very different than playing it. So what I discovered is when I first played through it as me playing the game, I had a very strong attachment to the main character because she's so interesting and weird, and her motivations make total sense. And like, she's kind of the chosen one, but really by accident. Like, she just kind of steals the thing that makes her the chosen one.
Yeah.
Like, that's just Lord of the Rings. I've just realized that's just Frodo. He just takes.
He just nicks it. Yeah.
Shit. Well, Bilbo nicks it, but that's the same plot. Dang. Anyway, so throughout the whole game, like, you get the sense that she's searching to find her place, even though there's like other stuff going on. Like, you're going there to these places for specific reasons. In the same way that The Witcher 3, you take the side jobs to pay for the coin to get the better weapon to fight the thing to follow Ciri's trail.
Yeah.
Horizon Zero Dawn is much less obtusely linear in that sense. Like, The Witcher masquerades its non-linearity. It masquerades its linearity as non-linearity by making the side quests part of what you need to do to continue the story.
Yeah, you never sort of, unlike something like Skyrim where like a side quest can just like, it branches off and it just keeps going in a different direction.
Correct.
Whereas, things like The Witcher, the side paths, they go out for a bit, but then
And
they
they
always
tend to
bring you back.
converge.
Yeah.
Some of them, are just their own parallel.
Some of them, they just go to a point and then end.
Which
and
is
then
some of those are
you're
the
just
best.
like, awesome. Yeah, they're some of the best stories in the game because they're short and like succinct.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the reasons that a lot of the early Dark Souls, the Dark Souls 2 levels are good, is that they're linear experiences that you're supposed to play through one direction and then finish.
Yeah.
And it's like, when you talk about something like Horizon Zero Dawn that is this giant open world game. And by the way, I didn't really talk about this to you yet, but one of the coolest things about this game is the sense of scale that you get of you versus the world. And I didn't think the setting would interest me. I was like, fucking robot dinosaurs,
Robot animals.
Which, 12-year-old me would be
Oh
so
yeah,
excited.
it's a very it's a very exciting, like in theory.
But adult me is like, just give me human drama. I just want two people in a room arguing, please.
Well, that's the thing. Like this similar to The Witcher, where the Witcher's full of monsters which don't actually matter. The Horizon Zero Dawn is full of these robot dinosaurs which matter a bit more, at least mechanically.
Also, I think
they actually sort of serve the sort of mechanics of the game a bit more with the crafting and the Ubisoft towers being big old giraffe boys.
Which, by the way, what a cool idea.
It's basically the Zelda towers, but like walking.
When I first did that, I was like, oh, fuck, that's cool. When you go, okay, I get that you need to have these towers in the game because fog of war and stuff.
Yeah.
Even though The Witcher solved that, but it's like, it's fine. You didn't need to integrate that into a very good video game. It's fine, whatever. Don't worry about it. But because it's like, why wouldn't you just use the waypoint lamp post system that The Witcher has is like, they fixed fast travel. And everyone's like, no, Ubisoft towers still. It's like, what are you doing? Anyway, no, so one of the things, as you were saying, that is cool about that as a concept is they didn't just go, oh, we need a fucking Ubisoft tower, how are we going to do it? They went, okay, in this setting, we want these giant giraffes that are kind of like plodding around, and they're just part of the scenery, and they're just really weird to look at. How do we incorporate them into the gameplay?
A bit funky, yeah.
Which I think is like a lot of why I like Subnautica's design so much. It's kind of there's a big parallel, like big Venn diagram in my head of all of these games that I love, and they all kind of overlap for a lot of the same reasons. And I think, when you talk about Subnautica, there are these treaders these big weird giraffe-looking fucking things that walk on the bottom of the ocean.
Man, what's the deal with giraffes?
They're just creepy and weird because they look like fucking aliens. That's why
giraffes shouldn't exist.
Hey, putting you on blast, giraffes. What are you doing? Get the fuck out of here! How'd you get into my house in the first place? Now get rid of giraffes, man. They're so fucking weird. I don't know why I did a drive-by on giraffe.
Evolution's like long con.
That and platypuses. He was like, what if it was a duck with a poison tooth? What are you talking about, God?
Platyboys are weird,
fucking
dude.
lunatic.
Yeah.
No, Subnautica, has these treader things that kind of walk on the bottom of the ocean. They got these really long legs, and they don't hurt you. They just kind of tread up valuable minerals, and it's a cool way to get stuff if you don't have the right equipment, but you want to progress the game. In the same way that the giraffe towers, which is a weird sentence coming out of my mouth, the giraffe towers act in that same way where they're like, hey, listen, we understand that you're playing a game, but there's no reason why it can't be a really pretty game that does something interesting with how you discover locations. And I feel like that's the same thing. When you get to the first big city, it's kind of blew my fucking mind. I was like, oh, there's cities in this video game. Like, when you don't expect... You expect it to be like Zelda, where it's like, oh, it's a bunch of like villages and shit. And you get to a city and you go, oh, dunk.
I had a similar thing with the Mad Max game.
Yeah.
It's just, you kind of just expect it. I mean, and that was... the same thing happened with the Mad Max game, and I wasn't happy about it.
Ruined the setting.
It's just like you drive along and suddenly there's a big major town. You're like, no, I want this to be just mostly barren desert and empty.
Yeah.
But yeah, like it's like eye opening in this game because the world is so dense already with like other entities, and they sort of like pepper, they pepper the world with like, other characters that sort of exist in their own sort of little bubbles.
Yeah, they all have their bubbles. Yeah.
Yeah. And then there's like some bigger bubbles and there's some real small bubbles, and like you'll come across just like two people and you're like, hello. And they're like, here's a quest line. You're like,
oh,
cool.
and like a lot of it, you're like, oh, that's cool. I've already been to that place. And they'll go, oh, actually, maybe try here. It's like, it's really cool in the same way that The Witcher does a lot of heavy lifting as far as like, okay, if you get this quest at this point, it's going to be more complicated because you've already done that quest and this person's moved here. So they actually rewrite around it with different variables because they wanted to make a good game. And same with Horizon Zero Dawn, whereas like a lot of RPGs, like Assassin's Creed Origins does this a lot, despite how good it is as a game, where it's like, this quest can't be related to any characters that you've met before because you could do it any time.
Right.
Whereas The Witcher,
The Witcher is just like, hold my beer.
Which is like, hold my beer, bitch. This is a
I'll show you
27
how to do intertwining stories with multiple characters at arbitrary points.
This is the 18th time you worked for this guy, and you've done it in a different order than anyone else has ever done it before, and
Hold
it
my
works.
beer.
And it's incredible. And you know, Horizon does a similar thing where they try and, without being too obtuse about it, they try and imply some connectivity between certain quests, but a lot of the time you don't notice that it's kind of riding around those problems. But you know, as far as getting to that first city, I think it's instrumental in what makes futurism settings like this so not compelling necessarily, but so interesting to like actually interact with. Because a lot of Horizon is you're shooting a bow and you're sort of dealing with these dinosaurs, but to be honest, most of it's just like walking through the world and interacting with stuff.
Yeah.
And that's a very different future than what you would see in something like
Watch Dogs.
yeah, something like what? Yeah, well, exactly. Like the futurism in Watch Dogs is like every
Hackers.
hack the world.
Mobile phone does everything.
Yeah, I mean the second game is sensationally good, but it still has that element of like interactions feel like gimmicks because they wanted to make the world full of stuff to do, not full of reasons to do stuff.
Ooh, that's a good one. That put that on a t-shirt.
Yeah, and I've just like that's I've just realized that's why I like certain games and not others. It's because if the game can help you feel the reason to do it, then your intentionality when you're doing it, like your play conditioning is part of your intentions, right? You're like, well, you know, so in The Witcher, you want to fucking go do this quest because you want to help, you know, Ciri or you want to help Yennefer do this because you're playing as Geralt and you're invested in the outcomes of these people.
Yeah, not because the combat's fun, because the combat is not.
Yeah, not because you want to fight a big boss boy. Same thing with Horizon Zero Dawn, where you get into these giant fucking fisticuffs with these crazy, scary, big-ass dinosaur things that you're like, holy shit, they're gonna murder me. But you're not going, fuck, I want to kill this thing. You're going, I want to get out of Dodge so I can get back to help some other folk, or I want to kill this thing so that it's gonna create a pathway for these people to move their produce or whatever the quest is. And it's because the game encourages you to examine more crucially why you're interacting with the world, not just what you're doing. And Assassin's Creed Origins does the same thing, and it's why it's the best Assassin's Creed game, because it copied that from The Witcher. It went, you know, a lot of the quests in The Witcher aren't even fighting monsters. It's just a guy who's like one of them was like, hey, can you just go to this post box and pick up my mail? Because I broke my donkey died.
Yeah.
And you do it and you've just helped the community, right? You see, and then Assassin's Creed Origins, you're this Magi who's like a traveling sheriff, and people just ask you for help with stuff. Like, we talked about it in our Assassin's Creed episode, but that separates the game in my mind from other titles like Shadow of War, where literally, as the game's title implies, the only interaction you have is murdering
big old battle. Yeah.
So when you look at something like Horizon Zero Dawn that can occupy both spaces, so it's like you do a lot of fighting big ass dinosaurs, and it's extremely fun. Like, I had a blast with a lot of the fights in this game. Toward the end, I was like, okay, I'm fine though, thank you. But a lot of it, like, I was like, man, this is really interesting and compelling. And even when you upgrade, nothing, you never feel safe to just take something on, which kind of contributed to this level of, you know, I felt like I hadn't become a god. Like, I didn't have like that power creep.
You didn't have the godism.
Yeah.
Just sort of
which always
maxed out all the trees and just kind of like one-shotting things.
Yeah, when like you know, when you finish Shadow of Mordor or whatever, and you're just like
He's
this
just a
god who can
god.
do anything. And I'm like, yeah,
Yeah.
I don't love that. Even Batman avoids that somehow by just making you really like punchable. So
People just love just biffing up on you.
biffing
yeah.
up on bats.
Yeah.
Put that on a t-shirt. But no, it's I don't know. I guess the point I was trying to make there is when you talk about games, and maybe you know, maybe there's a term for this in games design, but the concept of trying to align player motivation with the actual gameplay, because that is such a hard thing to do, and like I don't know how you achieve that.
There's sort of like there's the idea of like intrinsic and extrinsic rewards, where sort of an intrinsic reward is like, you know, look at like Hotline Miami. Like there's that game is entirely intrinsic reward. Like there's no, so most games usually have a balance, or some games have like sort of all of one or all of the other. Like it's sort of a spectrum. So games like, I don't know, like Super Meat Boy are pretty much entirely intrinsic. Like there's no actual reward for like finishing all the levels.
The game doesn't reward you with something. The reward
the reward is finishing the game. Whereas something like
so
or like an RPG, like the reward that there's sort of extrinsic rewards in like the continuation of the story. Like you do a thing and then you get rewarded with
Geralt
story.
gets to the next thing.
Yeah.
And so for something like Darkest Dungeon is because that's mostly intrinsic because you don't really get anything for doing anything. You just do more of the
Darkest
same.
Dungeon is where
Or is it one of those weird?
Darkest Dungeon is where it kind of starts breaking down because that game's not fun.
I think that game's is such an exception to game design.
that game is just not fun.
Yeah, and I fucking love it.
I think the like that game is kind of adjacent to stuff like Dark Souls, where it's kind of more of along the lines of the reward is like the completion. But in Darkest Dungeon, it's weird because the completion you're still like in Dark Souls, you beat the boss and it's like a relief.
You go to the bonfire.
You're like, like oh my god. It's like, but Darkest Dungeon,
you get more
stressed. You finish a thing. You finish a quest and it's like, oh man, that was a hard fight. And then like your characters level up and all of them get negative stats.
Diseases
and then you have to
stuff.
spend all your money to make them not stressed out. And it's just like, nah, I'm good, thanks.
I'm fine though.
So it's Darkest Dungeon's a weird one.
Maybe we should put him in a corner and not think about him too much.
We'll have to come back to why that game is actually rewarding.
We need to do a part 2 on that.
We need to figure out why that game's rewarding.
Maybe I'll call. We got to call some people.
It doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make sense, but I can't stop playing.
Yeah. So something like so when you have that alignment of, it's interesting when you have sort of, let's look at a book. Like the extrinsic reward for reading a book is getting the story.
Mm-hmm.
But a book you're really invested in, it kind of becomes an intrinsic reward where you're so aligned with like the characters in the story that you're reading the book because you want
want outcomes.
Yeah,
for the
you're kind of continuing with the characters.
Yeah.
And especially with games that's a whole extra level because you're actually playing as those characters. So when you're playing The Witcher, you're reading a book, but turning the pages requires that sort of skill. Skill check, essentially.
You to be part of...
Yeah.
So
you're there's... The extrinsic reward on paper is still the story, but you kind of take on some of that reward, like, on a personal level.
Yeah.
Especially if, like, the game throws, like, curveballs at you and stuff like that.
And then you have to deal with those.
Yeah.
That's a super... Wow, that's so interesting. Yeah. So then, I guess, in the case of, like, Horizon... when I try and talk to people about why I enjoyed the game, one of the things I struggle the most to articulate, which should never happen, I literally work in communications, but one of the hardest things for me to explain to people is that the thing that I enjoy about that game isn't the dinosaur robots, and it's not the bow and arrow gameplay, and it's not even the main character. It's when you... And this is why I really like Zelda as well. There's something about open world games that understand that isolation is something that is incredibly rewarding. If you let the player experience a world by themselves, and this is why I think Skyrim does itself a disservice with the number of companions you can have and how easy they are to get. And New Vegas solves this problem, but that's a conversation for another day. But
when we go back to New Vegas,
God, we have to do like 10 episodes on it. That game is incredible.
Yeah.
But that sense of recognizing that the isolation is what's interesting about, like, the Western operatic stories, like, big Western, sprawling spaghetti Western stories. The thing that's interesting is isolation does weird things to people. And it does weird things to people given the different world and setting they're in. So in Horizon Zero Dawn, one of the coolest things is, like, when I see someone else, I'm pretty fucking excited. I'm like, oh shit, there's a person.
Oh my god, it's a thing that won't kill me.
Yeah, there's a thing that is going to talk words and not going to murder me with giant robot cannons and shit.
Yeah.
And big old tiny T-Rex claws. But then sometimes I come across an area with, like, dinosaurs that I know aren't going to attack me, and I'm like, I'm going to hang out for a minute and just enjoy.
Yeah.
And, or, even from a distance, sometimes, like, I don't want to fight something, but I'll hang around just to kind of watch it for a while. Because I'm like, man, what's he up to? And that engagement of recognizing that the isolation is what builds your intention to do, like, active world building yourself. Like, I don't need to do that, right? The game isn't like, hey, Dave, stop what you're doing and watch the dinosaur. It doesn't say press Y to watch.
Press F. Press F to pay respects.
Yeah, it doesn't... Yeah, exactly. It doesn't do that. It just goes, hey, here's the world, and if you want to, you can do those things. And that's why, like, Grand Theft Auto games, particularly GTA 5, my fondest memories of those games are just driving around and stopping at places and just hanging out. Not doing missions, not, like, shooting folk, just, like, going and being like, hey, what's the beach up to?
Yeah.
Riding a bike on the beach, going for, like, a jumping on the jet ski, just banging about the bay, and just like
Just firing off a few RPGs.
shooting off some missiles.
Classic day on the beach.
Yeah, classic day at the beach. But like
Throw
that,
a couple shrimps on the barbie.
that stuff, being in a world that feels like it's existing around you without you, is what Horizon does so well with its futurism, because you feel like all of the technology, regardless of whether it's in you or in dinosaurs or in other people, always feels like it's been there forever. And that's kind of what you talked about with like that post-apocalyptic thing before you hit
Yeah.
record with Adventure Time.
With Adventure Time.
Yeah.
Adventure Time's a weird thing because when that show started, they definitely did not know that they were going to do what they ended up doing, sort of around like season 3 to 4,
And
where
then they went buck wild. in
yeah,
season
where they basically went, let's give our characters some backstory. And
six.
then they sort of formulated this weird. They basically like it's sort of a standard kind of post-apocalyptic thing where they were like, did we do an episode on Adventure Time?
No, we haven't yet.
Are you sure?
Yeah, I'm
I
super
feel
sure.
like we've done like one years ago.
No, I think what we've probably done is during one of our gameplay series we talked about this.
Okay.
probably.
Well, yeah, they sort of just build a backstory, and it's the gist is that like basically like nuclear war causes magic, which I'm pretty sure like other sort of places have done. It's like in
Yeah.
Stalker basically does that as well. BioShock.
Man,
I
we
guess.
gotta talk about Stalker at some point.
Oh, ugh, shit.
Well, yeah, BioShock does that. Science makes magic.
Yeah. But
I guess
so they started off with this like fantastic world,
Mhm.
and then like later on sort of went, oh, actually this is sort of Earth in a sense, like because they would always have like jokey references to like Earth shit, like TVs and stuff.
Yeah.
And everyone's like, why is there a TV? This is like a magical place. And then they were like, well, let's just say it is Earth.
Well,
Let's just say there was an apocalypse and these characters existed and knew each other before, and
and some of them are new and some of them are
and-
not, and
it's a weird thing where back then there weren't really many examples of like post-apocalyptics. Like that wasn't really a term.
the only thing that I know is the Dark Tower books,
Yeah.
where that. But then again, like that. Not to interrupt your point, but like, yeah, that concept was the only place I'd seen it executed in a way that made sense, where the world was kind of full of things that, that walk past broken machinery or stuff that,
Yeah.
like at one point during one of the books, they walk past like a crashed fighter, like a World War II fighter jet,
Yeah.
but they don't know what it is. So the
Yeah.
description is very alien. They try and work out what it is as they walk past it. So in the same way, I think Adventure Time does a great job of, it alludes to a lot of that.
It does, yeah.
And then, they have like flashbacks and stuff, which, some of that I'm like, cool, but
Some of it's okay. Most of it's
some of it's a bit
some of it's kind of
heavy-handed.
yeah, some of it's kind of annoying. But like that sort of concept of take like the Earth as it is now, just like blow it up,
And then
and
fast
then
forward
and then see where you end up, like see where you go.
especially like as
Get past the garbage cliche post-apocalyptic stuff because that stuff's overdone and shit.
yeah,
and
we
no
see
one
you
likes it
Fallout
anymore.
3.
Yeah, it's like that. It's boring. We don't like it. Get out of here.
Get get out of here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like you skip
Take the
past that
giraffes
bit,
with you,
Yeah,
if
and
you
like
don't mind.
take a few hundred years and do a round 2.
See
Do
what
a round
happens.
2 of civilization. See what happens.
Numero 2 civilization.
Yeah.
See what's up. Which I feel like it's funny you say that. The Walking Dead comics are kind of trying to do that at the
They're
moment.
trying to like reboot and do like a post.
It's
post-apocalyptic
kind of really
society.
cool. It's working really well.
Yeah.
I'm well behind though, so I don't know if that's
Well, that's the thing.
going down the toilet
There
yet.
hasn't been a series that has bridged, like actively bridged from post-apocalyptic to post, and then continued in that post. Everyone's either started and stayed in post, or started in post, and like alluded to like the old world.
The closest thing that I've seen would be The Stand, where that starts in. So The Stand is a weird book by Stephen King, and it's one of his longest. Shocker, he wrote a lot of words when he did cocaine. And it starts in things are fine, normal world. Then it goes to post-apocalyptic and fast forwards a bunch. Then goes into post-apocalyptic, and then everything ends terribly because there's a big fight at the end.
Yeah, like the only one I can think of that really does it is like, and in a weird like non-canon and also not apocalyptic way, it's like Star Trek. Because they have sort of explained the line from like current point to them.
But then
Except there was
that's
just
also
no
like
apocalypse.
This is like, yeah, which is kind of fucking cool. I mean, like having watched Star Trek Discovery, which
It's fantastic.
You should. It's incredible.
I will after Deep Space Nine.
It is. You know when
After all 7 seasons of Deep Space
Star Trek
Nine.
Discovery is the only Star Trek season that I finished and went, I have to go back and rewatch it right now. Because there was so many things in that show that are so well set up, and I was like, oh my god, I wonder if that's planted earlier. And then you go back and you're like, fuck! It's best Star Trek series maybe ever.
Maybe.
And I say that with not much confidence because Generation is, but I guess the point that I wanted to end on, having talked about the post-scarcity and the post-apocalyptic, all that stuff, is when you choose a setting for a game and it's in the future, you have so many options. And this whole dystopian Hunger Games thing,
I'm so fucking done.
I'm done. It's Maze Runner. Why you gotta kill it? Why'd you have to kill it? We were fine.
It wasn't even Maze Runner. It's like it's never been good.
Well, but it has.
Give me one example of like a dystopian.
1984. It's fucking great.
Oh, that's a book.
Oh, what do you need? You need something that you've.
Well, no, 1984 is like the OG.
Good dystopia.
Like good dystopian, like modern dystopia, like in the past 10, 15 years.
Yeah.
Like it does not exist.
Oh, Looper is kind of that.
Okay,
sorta.
I will give you that one.
Looper is pretty good.
Looper is a pretty cool universe.
Yeah. Gotcha, bitch.
And I guess technically Blade Runner had a new film recently.
Oh,
so...
suck shit. Also, Cloud Atlas. I got a bunch of these, mate. I could go on all day.
Atlas was not. No,
One of them set in the future.
I disagree with Cloud Atlas being a
You know-
dystopian film.
Isn't there one that's set right?
One of them is, but
I'm
like,
thinking
fuck
of
that
Looper.
film's dumb.
No, that is no. Actually, no. The one I'm thinking of Cloud Atlas is the bad part of the story.
Yeah.
Yeah, the book's quite good though. Oh god, I'm becoming that person. The book's better than the movie. Fuck. All right. Well, it's that time of the week, Ben. We have to do the thing where we give recommendations about stuff that we've been enjoying, and you never prepare somehow. It happens every week.
Ready.
No,
actually, I do have one.
What have you got?
Warframe.
Yeah, it's all you've been doing.
Suddenly, I played Warframe when it came out in like closed beta. Like I have the closed beta stuff. I don't have like the founders stuff because I didn't put money to it because the game was garbage back then.
Gobbo.
It was horrible.
Put it in the bin.
The game was shit for like 3 years, and now it's good. I don't know what happened. Like everyone's sleeping on Warframe. Warframe's like low key one of the best like multiplayer games, like easily in the past 5-10 years. And
stop fucking sleeping on it then. Jeez, stop you listening. Stop fucking sleeping on it. Do you mind?
There's something, I don't know what it is, but like Warframe's a very good game.
Would I enjoy it?
No.
Okay.
You would fucking hate it.
That's
you
good.
would hate Warframe.
Great. I always think the only person I trust with that question is you, because everyone else is like, it's got elements that you like, but you'll be like, no, the why of it is wrong. Like the reason why you'd like
people
it.
People be like, well, I enjoy it, so you'd enjoy it. It's like, no. This is David we're talking about.
People do this thing where they go, well, it's got, you like sci-fi and it's got sci-fi in it, so you'll like it. I'm like, no. Whereas like, you know, like I can't think of what the conversation was, but we were talking about Darkest Dungeon and Subnautica, and someone suggested this like really complex like Civilization style management system game, and you were like, he'll fucking hate that, and they were like, but it's got similar elements, and you were like, nah, he'll fucking hate it because the why of it's wrong.
Oh yeah. Dominions.
Exactly.
Yeah. No, I was like, no, I didn't even fucking enjoy that game. No, fuck that game.
No.
Shout outs to Phil.
Shout outs to Phil. Oh, that was Phil. Okay, I was trying to think of when that
I was
was.
trying to get you in that game, and I was like, no.
But it's like, yeah, no, fucking stop. Only suggesting video games is so fucking hard. There's so many elements to it. I guess my only recommendations this week are. Fuck, when you're like, what have I done in a week?
What have I
in my
been
life?
doing this whole time?
I mentioned last week, Dirk Gently season 1, incredible.
Yeah.
Do it, watch it, put it in your eye holes, make it happen in your life.
Don't put it in your ear holes, face. Oh wait, yeah.
Your eye also have to look
face
at it
holes and eye
with
holes.
both holes.
Mouth holes if you're eating popcorn while watching it.
It's a good point.
Just transitioning that into a PG joke on the fly.
Yeah, you did pretty well there. I don't eat a lot of carbs anymore, so I miss popcorn. No, the only other thing I was going to recommend was... Fuck, there was something I had before and I forgot it with our discussion of Warframe. Shit.
Oh, no.
Oh, no, I was going to recommend Negi Jakey. He's been putting out some hot shit lately. It's
yeah.
good!
He's got some...
Fuck, he's got some banging videos.
He's got a lot of good videos.
The video he put out today on Valve
on
is
Valve.
fucking great.
Yeah.
Recommend. Dude's a fucking genius. Check him out. Negi Jakey on YouTube.
He's like low-key becoming...
He's one of my favorite channels.
Becoming really good.
Delicious. Check him out. Yeah, but it's that time of the week, man. Where can people get to us and find us?
That's a good question, David. Facebook,
DCMworks social on Facebook,
YouTube,
youtube.com/DCMworks. Real quick before we move on.
Oh no.
the partnership changes for YouTube coming this week, and a lot of people have been like, subscribe to my channel. We're gonna lose monetization. All I'll say is this: if you do subscribe to YouTube, great. You get to see our pretty faces in person.
I'm very sorry.
Ben looks homeless. I look.
I'm unemployed.
I look like I got fired today from my office
That's why
job.
I'm wearing shorts.
Yeah.
If you want to see Ben in shorts, all the
check literally every
Ben
episode of this
shorts.
podcast
Yeah.
that's been filmed,
Ben
except
shorts.
for the last 2 months.
Oh man.
No, what was I gonna fucking say? Oh yeah. So if you do subscribe, that's great, but we're probably not gonna ever monetize on YouTube unless it makes sense for us from a business perspective, because as far as like brand alignment, they don't necessarily meet the criteria that we have for companies that would make us money. But if you do want to support us, where could people go to maybe do that, Ben, if they wanted to directly financially
I'm doing
support?
Twitter first. Twitter. We
At
get
DCM_works. You do them different
Patreon-
order every week.
yeah, but Patreon is always last.
Yeah, you're right. At DCM_works on Twitter.
Patreon. No, you want a Patreon?
You gotta give me a beat to like explain the little teaser,
what?
little sizzle.
Fucking whatever.
Jeez. Oh, I was gonna say, you know what? I'm not gonna do it now. Fuck you. Do the Patreon thing.
Patreon.
Patreon.com/DCMworks. And if you do become a subscriber on Patreon, our lowest tier is $3. And at $3, you get
Our
access
highest tier is whatever you want.
$10 million.
We won't accept a penny more.
A penny more or less. No. Yeah.
We definitely do.
So our
Quite a few
subscriptions,
pennies left.
yeah, quite a few. Our subscriptions start at $3 a month, and for that you get access to our Patreon only show open to suggestion, where
Ooh.
we do stuff like read cool audiobook stuff from Reddit.
Spicy,
and spooky.
terrifying.
We also
garbage.
do part 2s of After Artists episodes, so you can listen to part 2
We
of our
feel like just
Skyrim.
rambling for a bit, where it's just a bit too garbage for the podcast feed. But
Yeah, but if you want to see
plenty
it,
good for you guys.
it's more like what Ben and I talk about when we're not recording. But there's also
but
a
we
microphone.
are recording.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Last week, an episode went up of part 2 of Blade Runner 2049, where Aaron, my editor, and I sat down and we decided if it was a sequel. Spoilers, it's not. So you can have a listen to that. This week, we've got coming up, Aaron and I sat down and read an old script of mine from high school.
Oh no.
And it's very bad.
Yeah.
So if you want to...
I think I've also read
No,
that
I don't
one.
think you have. Not that one.
Oh.
Not that one. It's
Not that one?
fucking
I
bad.
bet a few
So
of them.
if you want to peep that, you can. And yeah, you get access to all of that, and also it helps us keep the show running, keeps the lights on, and you also get access to all kinds of cool stuff because I got the Patreon Lens app now, so I can.
We can take photos.
It's like
and
Snapchat,
shit.
but just for you, which
So
I'm
it's-
happy about. I like it because they can't message me back. That's the dream.
Right. Yeah.
It's,
yeah,
I
It's
hate
a
social
one-way
media. So
Snapchat.
it's perfect.
Yeah.
So yeah, you can subscribe to that on patreon.com/DCMworks. $3 is the lowest, and I think maybe 10 is the highest. I can't remember, or 20. I can't remember. But yeah, big shout outs to our patrons this month. I know that Yup Kumans, he suggested this
He's the
episode.
boy.
If you are a Patreon, you can suggest episode topics, and you do get to find out the theme for the month early, and then vote on
Honestly,
what we
you
should
can,
cover.
You can boss us and you can boss us around. We'll do whatever you want.
I mean, not whatever.
We'll do anything.
We'll do a topic potentially if it's going to
We'll
work
do
for the show.
anything.
I'm very worried about how you think this system works. But yeah, you can subscribe there, and we really appreciate it. Alternatively, one of the best things you can do, because this show is about storytelling and art and analysis and criticism, one of the best things you can do is just like tell one person that you think would probably enjoy it. I know it's hard to recommend the show because of the broad range of topics we cover.
Spread the good word of
yeah.
our Lord and Savior.
Tell another.
Us.
Sorry,
Us.
you're starting a cult now.
I mean,
That's a good idea, actually. No, yeah, tell someone who's creating stuff that you think would enjoy it, because that does help out the show. And also, you get to have a weird conversation about how often we say cunt, and that's pretty fun. So look forward to that. Otherwise, I'm at DC My Hip Pie,
I'm at Little Citrus.
and we will see you guys next week.
Or will we? No, we will. It's fine.
I was like, will we? What's wrong? Is there something you need to tell me? Like, is someone ill?
29. You fucking idiot.
Fuck, I was wrong. You were right.
Yeah. Well,
Shit.
we were both. I mean, you were the most wrong. You weren't even close.
Don't rub it in.
I at least got one of the correct numbers.
Fuck yourself.